This is a special edition of the Lend Academy podcast. It is the annual LendIt Fintech USA preview show that I recorded with my colleagues Bo Bruskern and Todd Anderson. Hope you enjoy the show. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the LendIt Fintech USA 2020 preview show. We are less than 2 weeks away, as we're recording this, from the big show happening September 29th through October 1st. And as we do every year, we dedicate some time to sort of walk through the event and sort of give you some background about it so you can maximize your time, maximize your efficiency when you are actually attending LendIt Fintech USA. So before we get started, we should just at least acknowledge that these are very strange times we are living in. These are challenging times for all of us. The fintech industry, I think, has really, it's changed dramatically this year. We couldn't have imagined, I think, some of the things that fintech has undertaken, before this year started. But, whereas obviously there's all sorts of parts of the economy that are shut down, fintech is alive and well. In fact, fintech is thriving, and there are some areas of fintech that are just, booming like never before. And, we're really bringing this show to everybody with complete awareness and acknowledgement of the unusual times, and we're trying to deliver a show that will really that will really address the challenges, the opportunities of this unique time. So with that, maybe why don't I throw over to you, Bo, and you can just talk about a bit of give the listeners a bit of a breakdown of the event.
Sure thing. Happy to, Peter. So when we set out to build this virtual event, we naturally did a great deal of work to figure out which vendors we were going to work with to produce a large scale, very high production value event. This is not meant to be, and it certainly isn't, a Zoom session. Zoom has its place. It'll get you there, but this is very different. This will feel a lot more like a proper event, a properly produced event, much more like a TV show than anything you've seen this year. So, we went out and looked at all the platforms that we could host this on, and Brella stood out again. First of all, we love the Brella team. We love the platform they've built, and they did a brilliant job of moving that to digital. It is still very much networking forward. We're going to be running all of our content, all the meetings, all the sponsor interactions, everything that you might normally do in an in-person event is going to be done right on the Brella platform, which is amazing. And then we've hired a production team that is an Emmy award-winning team to produce the event. And Peter and I are going to be up there hosting during the main stage. Peter, Todd, and I will be hosting all the tracks. It's going to be fantastic. So just as a very quick overview of sort of how we got to this place, that's sort of what I'd like to share here. Todd, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how we structured the content.
Sure. So those that come to our in-person events know us to be, have some of the best content out there. And it goes from morning to night. What we did here was a little different, though. We know everyone's time is short. We know that people want to be efficient. And so what we've done is we've started the keynotes at 11 a.m. Those go into early afternoon. So we have 4 impactful keynote sessions each day, and then a bit of a break. And then we go from 2 to about 5:30 in terms of the tracks each day. Each day we'll have 3 tracks. So there'll basically be 3 streams to look at each day. Keynotes will be highlighted alone by themselves, and they'll run all on Eastern time, by the way. So this is 11 a.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern to 5:30 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, and then I should point out too that we have the awards happening. We're going to be having the winners announced very shortly. In fact, soon after this is published, we will have the winners. They're in the hands of the judges right now. And it's unfortunate we obviously couldn't have an awards dinner. It's one of my favorite nights of the year, where we get to all gather and celebrate the people who have done some significant achievements over the last year. But we are going to be honoring the people as we have always done, it'll just be in a virtual way this year. So, Bo, I want to hand back to you and sort of talk about networking and just how we're setting that up, because we know that so many people come to LendIt for the networking.
Sure thing. So, as I mentioned, it's very networking forward, and I know a lot of you are going to be listening to this on the podcast. But for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can see my screen. And as soon as you enter the Umbrella platform, or the LendIt Fintech USA platform, you're going to get a chance to describe who you are, your affiliation, and so on, and build your profile. It immediately brings you into the people tab, where it shows you your matches with all the people that the platform believes you should meet, the newest additions, and there are literally scores of people joining the event every day, starting now and through the end of the event. And then you can, of course, bookmark people that you would like to meet. Of course, the schedule is available. It's going to be very familiar to you, this whole user interface. But the thing that I really wanted to talk about was the fact that we have a variety of ways to interact. Of course, that through the one-on-one networking, the speed dating is going to be just like everyone remembers it. And for those of you that are new to LendIt FinTech, this is a brilliant way to get in front of a lot of people that share your interests and have a quick discussion to find out if there's more to be talked about. So it is truly, business speed dating, and it works brilliantly. And in addition to that, we have overtime sessions for those of you that are familiar with what we do on LendIt FinTech Digital. It's a way that we break down the walls and we get you in front of each other in a video atmosphere, where we can have a discussion at the end of the day and talk about the things we learned and the hot topics that popped up that day. We have networking roulette, which is sort of a more spontaneous version of our one-on-one networking. And then we have the Women in FinTech Power Hour, which is sponsored by Deloitte. I should mention the networking roulette day one is sponsored by the UK's Department of International Trade. And then finally, for all of this, like for the content, for the networking, for the interactions with the sponsors, we have for the first time been able to create an award system. We call it LendIt FinTech All-Stars, and it's a way for us to reward people who are being very value added to all of our attendees. And by that, I mean asking great questions, participating in chat, interacting with our sponsors and exhibitors, setting up meetings, attending meetings, watching the content. All these things are going on a digital platform in such a way that we can find those 100 or so people that are standouts that were really value added to the conference and reward them with some really cool awards. So those are the LendIt FinTech All-Stars. The last bit I'll talk about is the Solutions Showcase. And honestly, this is where I spend most of the time. This is where all the sponsors for the event are hosted, and it's listed in order of their contribution value, really how much of an impact did they make to the LendIt FinTech USA conference. And it's brilliant because you can go in there and learn about the company, and then inside that company showcase, you can see, okay, now who do I want to meet? And everyone that's associated with that company is listed in that area. And once I find a company of interest, then I can go find a specific person of interest, set up a 15-minute speed date with them, and find out if there's more to be discussed. So that is, I think, what was one of the most powerful things that we offer, and certainly a place where everyone should spend a lot of time.
Okay, so that gives you a little bit of background there about how we're structuring it. I want to do a bit more of a deep dive into the content. Todd, myself, and Bo have really spent months gathering what I think is really the best speaking roster of any event this year, and if I might humbly say. Anyway, so as Todd said earlier, that we have the tracks are in the afternoons, really from 2 Eastern to about 5:30, and every day we're going to have 3 choices for you, 3 different streams. And on day 1, we're going to have credit and underwriting, digital banking, and regulatory, and we've got some fantastic speakers and some fantastic sessions in each of those. day two. Why don't you tell us about day two, Todd?
Sure. So day two, we're going to have our financial health track, which is sponsored by Plaid, our fintech debt and equity track, which will feature some of the leading VCs, as well as some of the leading credit funds in the space, and then our consumer lending track, which is sponsored by FICO. And that's going to talk about, with all that's gone on these last few months, consumer lending is quite a hot topic right now, and they're going to be diving into data related to it, and it's really going to be a must-see track for the audience, especially with what's gone on with the pandemic. So, Peter, back to you for day three.
Day three, we have, speaking of the pandemic and things that are going on, we had small business lending, which is really, I'd say, as impacted as any area in fintech by the pandemic. We've really had just, I think some of the companies that we've seen just really completely turn their company around with embracing the Paytech Protection Program. We talk about that in some depth. In fact, what we lead off with, I'm really excited about this with Brock Blake, who has become, I would almost say, a bit of a fintech rock star this year with how he jumped on board with the PPP, and he's going to be interviewed by CNN anchor Julia Chatterley, and that is something that I'm really excited about. Then we have also on day three, we have the real estate track, and we got, again, real estate's been impacted as well. It's so funny because there's some parts of real estate that are just got hammered, and some parts of real estate that is booming, and depending on what sort of niche you're in. So that's real estate. And then finally, we have embedded finance on day three, which we're covering all kinds of things like point of sale. We're covering the tech behind embedded lending and digital identity and all sorts of things like that. It was really good. And so I was remiss though on day one, and I need to mention, of course, our wonderful sponsors. We have Second Order Solutions sponsoring credit and underwriting. We have LiveVox sponsoring digital banking, and of course, Cross River Bank sponsoring regulatory. So thank you for the reminder on that, Todd.
And just last but not least, but embedded finance is sponsored by Sunlight Financial. So without obviously we're not able to put on an event like this without support from our sponsors. And these partners, as we've always viewed them, have helped us to put together some of this leading content. And so be sure to stop by some of these tracks, not only to hear sessions that they're involved in, but there's really, really interesting sessions across the agenda, all different types of topics that we're going to be discussing. So, please take the time and bookmark the sessions that speak to you and what you do for a living.
Yeah, and now let's go into keynotes, because this is where I think I would argue we spent the most effort. We have certainly put in a huge amount of effort into trying to get the keynote roster. Really now it's been like 16 months since we started doing this. So it's we've had some of our keynote speakers confirmed for well over a year, and now we're finally getting to do it. So I'm going to start off with the ones that just highlight the ones that I will be actually moderating. I've got Craig Boundy, who is the CEO of Experian North America. And, we are going to be, the title of the session is The Next Level of FinTech, Building Your Customer Ecosystem. And we're going to be talking, obviously, he's the head of a credit bureau. And so we're going to be digging in a lot to really what's going on with consumer data, with credit data, because we've got all this forbearance that's happening. It's not being reported to the bureaus. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about how you can really speed things up. How consumer lenders can really use the technology that's available today to really make faster decisions, We basically talking about the credit models that lenders doing today, and how you can be nimble and change, because this is what's really important today as things are changing so rapidly that these models have had to you couldn't be caught flat-footed and just go with the model you had last year, you had to change, and sometimes you had to change in a day. And that's sort of, we're going to talk a lot about speed in that session as well. I'll also be talking with the CEOs of OnDeck and Innova. We all know about the deal that was announced just a few weeks ago, and we're actually talking about what really led to the deal, sort of the seeds that kind of started the conversations, and really why these two companies are a good fit for each other. We're going to be talking about the online lending space in general. With the small business lending, it's been so dramatically impacted this year. OnDeck was a PPP lender for a while. They shut down in June, and talking about why they did that and how they're able to start up lending, and just sort of the opportunities that are really going to come from the disruption that we've seen this year for some of the leading players are able to expand their market share and what have you. So really excited. The first time we're going to be, this is obviously one of the biggest deals of the year, and we are going to be chatting with the CEOs behind that deal. So Todd, what are you looking forward to?
Thanks, Peter. So I'm highlighting 3 sessions that I think will be some of the more impactful sessions of the entire event. So first is our kickoff session with Stephanie Cohen of Goldman Sachs, who will be moderated by Jane Gladstone. Stephanie Cohen is CSO, Chief Strategy Officer at Goldman Sachs. Jane Gladstone is the president of the Promontory Interfinancial Network. And they'll really be discussing some of the changes happening at Goldman, not only with their business, but culturally, some of the changes going on there, working with partners like Apple and Amazon. So they'll really start to dig into how Goldman's gone from what was really seen as a bank of the wealthy to more of a Main Street bank, being able to serve millions of customers with both their Marcus and their Goldman brands. And that's going to be on day 1, kicking off the event at 11 a.m. Eastern, right after Peter and Bo give us some interesting opening remarks. And on day 3, we have 2 sessions back to back. First is Angela Strange and Matt Harris having a fireside chat about building for the underbanked. And I think with COVID and everything that's gone on in the last few months, building products for people who are in financial stress is becoming more important than ever before. And they're going to talk about some of the things that are out there in the market today, infrastructure as a service, how the trend towards everyone becoming a fintech company, no matter what industry you're in. And then one of our the industry's leading players in Plaid. And we have Plaid CEO, Zach Perret, moderated with Kate Rooney of CNBC. And he's really going to be talking about how fintech was born for the COVID moment. And so Plaid's become quickly one of the top fintech players in the entire world. They've launched in the UK and Europe, and they've really taken over the US scene, and they've become a huge brand name. Even with their Visa acquisition, the Plaid name is one of the best known in fintech. And so Zach's going to be talking about how fintech was born for this exact moment and how it's beginning to fulfill the promise that it started with, which was kind of democratize access to financial services to a wider swath of the general population.
Okay, and Bo, what are you looking forward to most on the keynote stage?
I've got 2 that I'd like to highlight, and I'll start with the final keynote of day 1, which is Tuesday, the 29th. And that is 2 characters of fintech that I just love. Love the sparks that fly on stage when we get Catherine Petralia and Rob Frowine of Cabbage to talk about, and the title says it all. The title of this session is 300,000 loans in 4 months, how Cabbage bet the company on PPP and saved 1 million small business jobs. It's just such an interesting story, and culminated in one of the biggest acquisitions that we've seen this year. And so while I don't think they're going to talk much about their deal with Amex, we're going to hear about a lot of the issues that came up as a result of the pandemic, how they dealt with it. And I think we'll touch on so many great topics. It'll touch on, of course, the core of business lending and scalability and being prepared for this moment or underprepared, and what do you do about it? And I think it'll also really highlight their leadership. So that one is going to be great. And then on day 2, Wednesday, we've got Anthony Noto of SoFi, who's going to be interviewed by Kate Rooney from CNBC. And Anthony is this just phenomenal leader who, came out of West Point, had a long and successful history as an executive, and then jumped on board as the chief executive of SoFi when it was, in a fairly troubled state. I mean, it had done a lot of innovating, but it needed to be consolidated. It needed to, own its leadership position, its innovative position in a way that was really profoundly different. And so listening to him speak is always enlightening. And I'm super looking forward to how they're looking at the future and the role that SoFi plays in the future of finance.
Okay, thanks, Bo. I want to talk now about the whole concept of having a virtual event, and obviously there's differences between a physical in-person event and a virtual event. And one day in the future we will restart in-person events. We don't know exactly when that's going to be. So right now, and that's one of the things that LendIt did very early on, we went all in on digital early, and we really recognized that we didn't know at the time, of course. We thought by now that things would start to get back to normal, but we went all in early. So what we've done in the last 6 months, we've probably done 50, 60 webinars, something like that, where we've really got this digital format down. And as Bo said, we've got an Emmy Award-winning producing team that is really helping us. There are a lot of disadvantages about having a virtual versus in-person event, but we need to highlight there's a lot of advantages. And some of the advantages are obviously people don't have to buy a plane ticket, you don't have to buy a hotel room. Our ticket price is way cheaper than it ever has been. And so that's a lot. You can save money and time that way. And also, I think having the digital format gives people a lot more flexibility. You can really jump in and jump out as needed. You can still take important meetings that you have to do during the day and come back to us when you are free. And that's, I think, something that is probably not said enough. And I think you've got, I would argue that all the things that are good about LendIt have been reproduced in this virtual way, in a way that I think that is just as good or even better in some ways. Because one of the things about the virtual platform is everyone logs into Brella. We know what people are doing, what people are watching, and what they're attending, and so that is for our sponsors. Obviously, that's very useful information. But Todd, do you want to give us your thoughts on going virtually this year?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's about certainty. And the one thing that we haven't had in 2020 is certainty. Whether it be when we first went and, some of the lockdowns, it'd be 2 weeks, it'd be 4 weeks, it'd be 6 weeks, it'd be Labor Day, it'd be Memorial Day, or it'd be July 4th. Now it's Labor Day. It's always seemed to be moving in uncertainty. And the one thing we always wanted to give our clients, our speakers, our attendees is certainty. And we believe the virtual format for the time being is as certain as it can be. Like Peter said, it gives you ultimate flexibility. You can go ahead and design your day around seeing Stephanie Cohen or Zach and taking 3 meetings at, between 2 and 3, and then seeing a session at 4, networking at 7. You can do these things, you can plan your day, but you can also see your kids. You can also get your work done. So it gives you the ultimate flexibility on top of being able to make connections that can better serve your business or what you do. And so I think ultimately when it comes down to it, yes, we'd all like to be doing things normally again, but virtual this year gives us the most certainty. And I think you'll find if you come to the event that there's a lot of value here, not only in the in the content, but in the networking and some of the other special things that we're doing. And I think you'll find a lot of other fintech, people that will find the experience similar.
Okay, Bo, last word on the move to virtual.
I'm going to go with reach. I mean, it's just phenomenal that the last count we had 44, I think, states out of the 50 in the union and something like 37 countries. And we had just opened registration onto the platform. And we've got a whole host of fintech executives from the UK that are joining us that are referring to the networking roulette, which happens, later in the day. That's midnight madness for them. And they're all doing it. It's just awesome. So, we've broken down the walls and we can time travel. If I'm not vibing with what's going on in track 1, I can flip right over to track 2. I don't have to get up and say, excuse me, and get out. I can chat around the side. I can do all these things in the digital environment that just weren't possible in the live event. So I'm super excited for what's to come.
Okay, well, on that note, we will call it a day. If you haven't got your ticket yet, then you obviously know now. You have to go to lendit.com/USA to register. You can do that right up until the day of, and feel free to jump on in. And we hope to see you online in just a few days. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, Bo. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Peter.